All right, good morning, Giri, and good morning to everybody, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are and when you might be watching this video. So today, Giri Maharaj and I are going to discuss the temple in South India, in Kerala, in Tiruvananthapuram, also known as Trivandrum. And the temple is the temple of Padmanabha Swamy. And we're going to discuss a little bit of the history of the temple, and we're going to discuss about the treasure which was revealed in the temple back in 2010, 2011. And there's a little bit of history to that. And it turns out to be the greatest treasure of valuables. That means gold, silver, diamonds, precious stones. We'll go through the list of some of the things that's in there and discuss that. It ends up being the greatest treasure ever found anywhere in the history of the world, in world history. And it's suspected to be had the temples of North India, such as Somnath, particularly, I believe it was Somnath, right, Gary?
Somnath, yeah.
Hey, just lower your camera a little bit. We're seeing too much above your head there. Just tilt it down a little bit. Yeah, whoop, that's fine. Had Somnath Temple in North India, in Gujarat, not been raided by the Muslim invaders and sacked 17 times, it would be even far richer than this Padmanabha Temple. But being that Padmanabha was never sacked, never invaded by the Muslims in southern Kerala, some pieces, a lot of the treasure dates back to over 2,200 years old and beyond. And we're going to discuss other things such as a little bit about the Jagannath Puri Temple, etc. So we've got some history to read on that, and I believe you've got that ready, Gary. Oh,
yep.
I gotta adjust your camera again, Gary. It's showing your curtain over on the rest. Yeah, turn it. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Bear with us, folks. All right. There's a mention of the Padmanabha Swamy Temple in Srimad Bhagavatam, and you find a little bit more elaborate narration on that. It's in 10th canto. Is it 10th canto?
Yeah.
It's in 10th canto. And you find a little bit more elaboration on that in Srila Prabhupada's Krishna book. But we're just going to read there from a little bit about the temple and everything like that. So, Gary, you go ahead and start the reading, and then we'll inject things as we go along, all right?
Sure. So, first about the origin.
The origin, yeah.
Yeah. In ancient times, the deity of Padmanabha Swamy was manifest to a Vaishnava saint named Bilvamangal Rishi, not to be confused with Bilvamangal Thakura, who wrote Krishna Karanamrita. In the forest of Anantaranya, the deity manifests from an ilupa tree. Several millennia later, in 1731, the King of Travancore renovated the deity, constructing a new deity from 12,008 shalagram shilas.
All right, let's summarize that again. So, it's possible that the deity of Padmanabha is amongst the, I would say for sure, top 5 oldest deities on planet Earth. It's often said that Muktinath up in the Himalayas, at that Shaligram, is actually the oldest deity or a manifestation of Vishnu on the earth. So in this forest in Kerala, which used to stretch all the way from just a little north of Kanyakumari on the on the west coast of India, which is now Kerala, and it stretched all the way up almost to where Karnataka began, and the area which is called Dakshin Kannada. So that was Anantaranya, the forest of Ananta, and in that forest, over time, in antiquity, three deities were manifested or appeared, and that's the Adikeshava deity, which is in the southernmost part, the Padmanabha Swamy deity, which is in the central, and Padmanabha is actually a Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, because the deity has rising from his navel the lotus flower and Brahma on top of that lotus. And then to the north in Anantaranya is the temple of Janardan. And so these are three very, very ancient deities on planet Earth. And we have then the narration in 10th canto where Lord Balaram, when he goes on pilgrimage, he visits these temples, and particularly I think the verse we're reading is he's visiting the Padmanabha Temple. So you want to read that verse, Gary?
Yeah. This is in the Bhagavatam 10th canto.
Are you going to be reading the Sanskrit and the Bengali to all these verses?
I can if you wish.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Okay. So this is in Bhagavatam 10th canto, 79th chapter, 18th verse. Tata falgunam asadya panchapsaram uttamam Vishnu sanihito yatra snatva sparshat gavayutam. Next, Balaram went to Falguna Tirtha, which is the old name for Tiruvananthapuram, and bathed in the sacred Panchapsara lake, where Lord Vishnu had directly manifested himself. At this place, he gave away another 10,000 cows.
All right, so Lord Balaram, and we didn't put in the other verses, he visited the Adikeshava temple, and then he went on to visit the Janardan Temple, which is now, did I mention that, in Varkala, the town known as Varkala. So if you go to Kerala today, you're not going to find the forest of Anantaranya. You're going to find the forest of coconut trees. For those of you who have been to Kerala, you know that there's a coconut tree about every 8 feet in any direction you might step. In fact, there are so many coconut trees that it's common to see a coconut tree growing inside of someone's house and growing right out through the roof, in the post office, inside government buildings. The coconut tree is considered a kalpa vriksha in Kerala and many places in South India, like Karnataka also. So you're not going to find that forest, which was a great jungle, as in the time of Balaram. You're going to find industrial cities. You're going to find thousands of temples, not just three ancient temples. But if you persevere, you can visit these three most ancient temples that have been there for millennia upon millennia. It's very hard to trace out exactly when, but from the earliest history of planet Earth, these deities have been manifest there. So also, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his tour of South India, he visited all three of these temples also. So we'll read that. Gary, you want to go ahead with that? And then we'll get into some things about the Padmanabha deity and the treasure that was found in the temple.
Right. So this narration is from Madhilila, 9th chapter. Shei dino choli oila payaswini tire snana kori gela adi Keshava mandire. That very night, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his assistant Krishnadas arrived at the bank of the Payaswini river. They took their bath and then went to see the temple of Adi Keshava. Mahabhakta Gana Saha Taha Goshti Koila Brahma Samhitadhyaya Punti Taha Poila. In the temple of Adi Keshava, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu discussed spiritual matters among highly advanced devotees. While there, he found a chapter of the Brahma Samhita. Bahojatne Shai Punti Nila Lekhaya Ananta Padmanabha Aila Harshita Haya. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu copied the Brahma Samhita, and then with great pleasure he went to a place known as Ananta Padmanabha. Dina Dui Padmanabher Koila Darshan Anande Dakite Oila Sri Janardan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu remained for 2 or 3 days at Ananta Padmanabha and visited the temple there. Then, in great ecstasy, he went to see the temple of Sri Janardana.
So these 3 temples. So I'm just going to put up momentarily on the screen here. This is the temple of Adikeshava. And it's there in southernmost tip of Kerala today, practically right on the border of Tamil Nadu. As you go down the southernmost tip of India on the western coast, it's probably about 40 kilometers from Kanyakumari. And it was in this temple that Mahaprabhu came upon the Brahma Samhita. And it was being read by the Brahmins there and being discussed. So he held discussions there. And he stayed there long enough to have Krishna Das or someone make a hand copy of the Brahma Samhita. And then from that point on, all the way until he got back to Bengal, he rarely let the Brahma Samhita out of his sight. He cherished that above all things. And the last place he visited there in Maharashtra, where the deity of Vittal, that's what is it called?
Pandharpur.
Pandharpur. There Mahaprabhu, he discovered or found, means in the temple, the Krishna Karnamrita,
right,
by Bilva Mangala Thakur. So we mentioned a Bilva Mangala Thakur in the beginning, to whom the deity of Padmanabha was self-manifest.
Yeah.
But this is a different, excuse me, this is different Bilva Mangala.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a different Bilva Mangala. And so it was that. So Mahaprabhu collected these 2 books in his tour of South India, the Brahma Samhita and the Krishna Karnamrita, and he brought them both back to Bengal and highly recommended them to all the devotees. So these 2 books are recommended by Lord Chaitanya himself as quintessential reading for those, for his followers, the devotees of the Sankirtan movement. 2 very important books, actually. All right, so here's a picture of the Janardan Temple, which is now in Varkala. I put that on the screen for a minute. This temple is just situated on a hill overlooking the Arabian Sea. And the origin, the Stela Purana of the Janardan Temple says that, I forget the beginning of the story, but Lord Brahma received this deity, and it's a standing forearm form of Vishnu. And there was some discussion on where to place this deity. Then it was decided, and Narada Muni, through his Uttariya, his upper cloth, threw it out into the sky from Brahmaloka, and as it descended through the universe, Lord Brahma and all the demigods followed the Uttariya. It was decided that wherever the Uttariya of Lord Brahma would land, then that's where the deity would be established, and it came to rest in that place which we call Varkala today. And the temple has been there since that time. So very, very ancient. All right, now the temple of Padmanabha, that's the central focus of our discussion. Let me see if I got a picture here of the temple of Padmanabha. First, here is the Gopuram. For those of you who may not know, a Gopuram is actually a gateway. This is just a tower over the main entrance to the temple compound. But the deity is not situated, never is situated under a Gopuram. Gopuram actually means gate. And but here's a little bit of an overview. You can see the Gopuram in the distance, and this is the tank. They call them tanks, or the ghat, at the Padmanabha Swamy Temple, where Mahaprabhu took his bath, and still to this day, pilgrims take holy bath there. All right, so now I've got a picture here of the deity of Padmanabha.
Mm.
Now, real photography is not allowed in the temple, and this temple, ooh, are they ever strict. And back in the 90s, I lived for 1 year in Trivandrum, in Tiruvananthapuram, and I used to go to this temple every day with the devotees. We would do Sankirtan and had a book table outside the temple, just a little bit down the road from the Gopuram. And so we would go in at least once in a day for Darshan. You have Darshan of this deity. It's a reclining deity of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. And you have the Darshan from 3 different doorways.
Mm.
Now, the reason for that is that the deity is I've heard different measurements, but somewhere in around 20 feet in length. That's almost 7 meters in length.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here is a picture. It's debatable whether it's the actual picture of the deity. I'm not quite sure, because it doesn't have the lotus stem and Brahma. But this next picture gives you an idea of the size of the deity. So I'll put that on the screen now. So you can see the deity is massive, is huge. And originally, the deity was self-manifest from wood from the, what's the name of that tree, Giri?
Oh, the Illapa tree.
The Illapa tree.
It's I think it's a butternut, Indian butternut tree.
They call it the Indian butternut. But in the 1700s, that means the 18th century, the king of Trivandrum renovated and had sent his Brahmins to the Gandaki River in North India, in Nepal, and they collected more than 12,000 shaligrams, and the deity was then constructed out of 12,000 shaligrams. And the way the deity is constructed, the shaligrams are all laid out and put together with what they generally call a chuna.
Mm.
It's a herbal cement. And nobody really knows anymore that I've ever met the formula for this chuna, this herbal cement. And all the shaligrams are then stuck together, and the deity is shaped as you just saw in that picture.
Mm.
And one interesting feature of the deity that I remember is that it was always in the winter that we were doing the Sankirtan in January, and it may be the actual day of Sankranti on the 14th of January. There's a small window in the top of the Garbhagudi. That's the sanctum, the actual room, or as we say in the modern time, the deity room. There's a little bitty window up there, and the sunlight comes through that window at around 10:30 in the morning, as I remember correctly. Anyway, a ray of sunlight comes through that window, and it shines down on the right ear. Now, I'll put that picture back up for a minute. You can't really see here because the Brahmin is holding a torch, but the light comes down and shines on the right ear of the deity. And it's the earlobe, which is quite big, is translucent, and there's a big green emerald inside the ear of the deity, not hanging on the outside. It's inside the actual earlobe of the deity, which I said is quite big. And when the light shines on it at that time of year, and only at that time of year, you can see if you're there for that darshan. So the darshan of the deity is through 3 different doorways, because the deity is so big, so large, it's very, very difficult to see the deity in any one from any one doorway.
In the original story of the deity, when the tree fell, he manifests from the tree. It says when the tree fell, the deity was so big you couldn't even see from his head. You couldn't see his feet.
Yes. When the Brahmins would tell you he was 8 miles in length.
Right.
And then on the prayer of the Rishi, the deity resumed the small strength. Small size. Smaller size. Still huge. Another thing, just to mention at this time before we actually get into the treasure and what that's all about, is that the kings of Travancore, going back for several centuries, I'm not quite sure how far back, I failed to note that exactly when, but they are known as Sri Padmanabha Swamy Das, and then the name of the king. And when a king is coronated, at the coronation, and now he is king, the first duty of the king is that he goes to the temple of Padmanabha and he places his sword in front of the deity. And he offers his full prostrate dandavats. And then he rises from that and picks up his sword with the pledge to rule the kingdom as the servant of the Supreme Lord, Sri Padmanabha Swamy Das. So all the kings have that title, very similar to the king in Puri. The kings of Puri for centuries and centuries have been the servants of Jagannath. All right, so, okay, back to the story. Now you've seen the size of the deity. It's a very huge temple, and there's a subterranean world in that temple, and there are many what they call vaults. Now, at the time that I used to go there, I knew nothing about this. No one talked about it. The people, the pilgrims, none of us, no one knew. The priest knew, the Brahmins of the temple, the royal family knew of this, the kings of Travancore. It is a family-owned temple. But somewhere in the 1990s and a little after, I don't know the detail of it, but it was decided with a Supreme Court ruling. So I don't know what brought about that Supreme Court ruling. Probably some internal politics between the royal family and the Brahmins or something. I don't know about that. But it brought about a Supreme Court ruling. Now, Gary, well, you want to read that first part there, and then we'll just get into discussing.
Sure.
So then now we're going to read about and discuss and show some pictures and mention a few things about this treasure. Now, the reason that I wanted to discuss this is because one of the opulences of the Supreme Lord is he's the richest of all. He is the most opulent. All opulence belongs to the Supreme Lord. So that just doesn't mean philosophically speaking. In fact, the Lord's representation here on earth from the Padmanabha Swamy Temple of today, which they were able to maintain the treasure, and many other temples in ancient India, these temples had more wealth, and the temple having wealth means the wealth belongs to the deity. Those of you who say were devotees in the late 1960s in ISKCON in the early 1970s, you may have experienced having the temple accounts, the records of the finances of the temple being read to the deities. This was practiced in some temples, and I think everybody got so busy, and I don't know if anybody does that anymore. I don't even know if the big international governing body reads their findings and their resolutions to the deity. I don't know if they do that. But in the beginning, such things were done because everything that's being done is being done for the deity. everything that the devotees have is actually the property of the deities. So the Prabhupada even went so far as to say, these are not your children. The children of the Grihastas, his Grihasta disciples. He went so far as to say, these are not your children. They are Krishna's children. So we very easily say, oh, these are Krishna's cows, and this is Krishna's temple, and this is Krishna's deity paraphernalia. For a Vaishnava, it extends to one's very self and even one's family members. These are not yours. These belong to Krishna. So, all right. So go ahead and start to read that here.
The temple and its treasure belong to Lord Padmanabha Swamy, the deity of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. In June 2011, the Supreme Court directed the authorities from the Archaeology Department to open the secret chamber of the temple for inspection of the items kept inside. The temple has 8 subterranean vaults labeled A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H.
All right, so that's not what the Brahmins called them, but that's how they were labeled by the order of the Supreme Court inspection. So basically, this inspection means they're going to inventory these 8 rooms. All right, Gary?
In 2012, vaults A, C, D, E, and F were opened, revealing what is now considered the greatest treasure ever discovered.
So that's 5 of the 8. There are 8 vaults, and in 2012, 5 of them were opened.
Right. Among the reported findings are a 3.5 feet tall solid pure gold idol, deity of Mahavishnu, studded with hundreds of diamonds and rubies and other precious stones. Also found were an 18-foot-long pure gold chain, a gold sheaf, a bundle of grain stalks tied together, weighing 500 kg, that's 1,100 pounds, a 36 kg, 79-pound golden veil, 1,200 Sarapali gold coin chains that are encrusted with precious stones, and several sacks filled with golden artifacts, necklaces, diadems, diamonds, rubies, sapphires, emeralds, gemstones, and objects made of other precious metals. Ceremonial attire for adorning the deity, such as a gold ankle bracelet weighing 30 kilograms, 66 pounds, gold coconut shells studded with rubies and emeralds, and numerous 18th century Napoleonic-era coins were also found.
Continue.
The treasure of Padmanabha Swamy also includes hundreds of thousands of gold coins from 200 BCE.
That's 2,200 years ago. For those of you who don't know, BCE means before the Common Era, which started 2,000 years ago.
With a value of approximately $390,000 per each coin.
Each coin. And how many coins are there? Well,
hundreds of thousands.
Yes, there were several lakhs. A
right.
Lakh is 100, 1,000 times 100, 100,000. There are several 100,000 of these coins, and they are valued with their antique value and their mint condition at $390,000 per coin.
Mm-hmm. Also found were 800 kgs of additional gold coins, a pure golden throne studded with hundreds of diamonds and other precious stones. According to varying reports, at least 3, if not more, solid gold crowns have been found, studded with diamonds and other precious stones. Some other media reports also mention hundreds of pure gold chairs, thousands of gold pots and jars. These were the treasures.
Thousands of gold pots and jars.
And these were the treasures found in just Vault A.
One vault. 1 out of the 5 vaults. Now what's happened is, when you go to look for this online, and undoubtedly maybe some of you will, it's almost impossible to find real pictures of the real treasure.
Mm-hmm.
And the details of all the vaults that were open to date are not given. The government of India, the temple itself, for reasons of their own, some good, some probably not so good, they're quite secretive about actually showing what happened. Here's one picture of a deity. Now, it's not understood. This is not the one that was 3 feet tall, studded with diamonds and other rubies, but this is clearly the deity, a golden deity of Padmanabha Swamy. And two of the distinct or unique features here are the stem and the lotus flower you can see with Brahma, but with one of the Lord's right hands extended and below it a Shiva lingam. And the large deity that one would see during Darshan also has these same features with the Shiva linga below the right hand of Vishnu. That's another topic, rather deeply philosophical, that probably we'll discuss on another day. Well, it has been estimated that this gold deity, there have been varying reports, it would be an Utsamurti, weighs several tons. Yeah. Several tons of gold. So let me just flash up a couple. We'll just bounce from one to the other. There's some pictures that you can find online. This is a composite showing different gold items. Here were some gold chains. This was a unique one. I'm pretty sure this was a real picture that made it out into the world because there was a description that there were many seashells made of gold by the bushel baskets full of seashells made of gold as some sort of an offering, I guess, at some time or another for the deity. There were thousands of gold pots, baskets. I'm not sure if this is actually a picture. I don't think this is a picture of the gold pots and baskets found, but it's representative just to help you get an idea. Thousands. Imagine this picture, and this is what? This has got, looks like about 12 pots and baskets there. Can imagine thousands of gold baskets, pots. There were coins, there were Roman coins, there was, I think it was 200,000 Roman coins, and those were valued at $390,000 per coin, over $250,000 per coin, and there are 200,000 such coins. There was also descriptions of, and this may have been, there was just gold in bulk. There were just bars of gold, and they dated up to, I believe one report I read, some of the bars of gold were from the 20, even up into the early 20th century, a lot from the 18th century, 17th century, etc., like that. And just big, in the forefront of this picture, you see some just big wad of gold. It's not even pressed into a block. So just massive amounts of gold. Again, the gold deity, Utsav deities, there were several, one covered in diamonds and precious stones, ornaments for the deity, gold feet, bangles, chains, really unimaginable wealth. We've heard about treasures before around the world. We've heard about the wealth of the Vatican. We've heard about the wealth of the crown jewels of England, which a lot of it was stolen from India, China, and other Asian countries. Well, just the wealth of this one room in the Padmanabha Temple dwarfs the wealth of any treasure, the crown jewels, and the only thing that could possibly come close to it is the treasure that might be in the pyramid tomb of the Emperor of Qin, the first emperor of China. It's actually the biggest pyramid in the world, an earthen pyramid, and it's where where in the foreground of that pyramid, years ago, they discovered the terracotta army. For those of you who follow some of the archaeological research that goes on in the world, the terracotta army. That's the emperor of I forget his name, but China's named after him. Emperor Qin, I guess. Yeah.
Huangxi is his name.
Huangxi.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think some of our viewers will probably want to know, how is it possible that Roman coins ended up at Padmanabha Temple?
Through trade. The coins that are there now, they're in Vault A. Were put in Vault A, they assume around somewhere in the mid 1800s, because Vault A was inventoried. At different times vaults have been inventoried, but there were 200,000 of these coins. They were found just north of Trivandrum, and a place called Kottayam. I forget the name of the town, but they were just unearthed in clay pots. There was a lot of trade 2,000, 200, 300, 400 years ago. There was a lot of sea trade coming to India, all along from Dwarka, all the way down to the end of India, and turning up the eastern coast all the way up to around Mahabalipuram, the shore temple. They find evidence of trade with Rome. And it turns out that Rome only had two things of interest for traders in India. First, let's explain. Rome didn't have fine silk cloth. Rome didn't have spices.
Right.
They didn't have really any. They didn't even have superior weapons. They didn't have superior steel. They didn't have superior bows or shields, and this is way before cannons and all that stuff. They had two things which the Indians thought had value, and that was gold, and the other was wine. Italian wine, Roman wine. And they know this because they have found in archaeological digs along the coast, and these digs are usually somebody digging a foundation for a house or something, and all of a sudden here are these huge wine pots, which are from Italy. They're from Rome. They're quite famous. There's a famous shape to them and the whole thing, and they're able to tell where they're from and everything. And so they're from the Roman Empire. So these two things Rome had, and it's actually said at one particular time, in buying things from India and having to spend gold, this caused a financial crisis in Rome, which then caused the Rome to invade. I believe it was the gold fields in Romania. Was it Romania?
Yeah, it's called Dalmatia, I think it was called.
Yeah, it's called Dalmatia in those days.
Yeah.
And they went up there and wiped out all these villages and took over the gold mining. And one of the reasons that they did that was that their own coffers had been depleted, their own treasury had been depleted due to their trade with India, because India, and they didn't want that much wine. They just said, bring the gold and we'll do business. So India's passing out spices and silks and all kinds of things, and ivory and all kinds of things. But the only thing they're bringing in is gold. So there was a lot of trade going back 2,000. I mean, we don't even know how much before that. But we do know that even in the time of Alexander, the greatness of India was known, and his ultimate conquest was going to be India. But when he finally got there, he found out that what lay in front of him was just a fraction of what he'd already conquered, and his army was whooped and tired, and they retreated and just went into a little piece of India. So India and China were and are again in the modern times becoming the center of wealth in the world today. And if those of you who follow economics has made a huge shift in the last 15 years back to Asia, economic powers in Asia, and that means India, and China. All right, so there's more to read about the treasure and the value of the treasure, Gary.
This treasure has solidified the status of the Padmanabha Swamy Temple as the wealthiest place of worship in the world. It is conservatively estimated that the value of the monumental treasure is close to 17 billion US dollars.
Okay, so that's 17 billion, and remember, 3 of the vaults haven't even been opened, and the biggest one is Vault B. And it hasn't even been opened, and the courts are not gonna, so there's some politics going on. It's not going to be open. It's massively bigger than all of the others put together. So just the gold value right now, and just the value of what you would pay for, say, a piece of gold chain, that weight in a store, it's worth $17 billion. Now, the next sentence is quite shocking.
Yeah. If the antique and cultural value are taken into account, the treasure is estimated to be worth $170 billion.
Remember, we're talking about Vault A. We're not talking about the other 4. We're only talking about one vault. There are 4 more vaults, which haven't even been properly inventoried. And from an inventory of Vault B in the middle of the 19th century, they have an estimated idea what's in there. But with the antique value, Vault A is worth $170 billion in today's market. Okay, now read Vault B.
Vault B has yet to be opened in recent years. But according to an inventory made of Vault B in the 1800s, the value of the treasure in Vault B, the largest of the 8 vaults, is estimated to be at least $720 billion.
That's one vault! 700! And with, and that ain't it. That's just raw gold and diamonds. And then, I gotta read the last sentence.
Yeah, please do.
With the cultural and antique value of the treasure in what is that?
Vault B.
Yeah, I missed that.
Yeah.
I put Vault A. Okay, added to that $720 billion value, added the antique value, is now worth $7,500 billion. That's Vault B. This is inconceivable wealth. And they haven't even inventoried 4 other vaults that they did open. They looked inside, but they didn't inventory everything. And then there, along with Vault B, which has not been opened, there are 2 more vaults, which are, F, G, F, F and H, or what was it, G and H, whichever it is. They hadn't even been opened.
Yep.
So this is, by anybody's estimation, an inconceivable wealth. So now to bring this into some kind of perspective, read the next as a reference.
Yeah. As a reference, the entire GDP, revenues in all forms, of the Mughal Empire at its very zenith under Aurangzeb in 1690 was a comparatively meager 90 billion US dollars in modern day terms. In fact, at its richest, the Mughal treasury in Akbar, Jahangir and Shah Jahan's periods consisted of 7 tons of gold, along with 80 pounds of uncut diamonds, 100 pounds each of rubies and emeralds, and 600 pounds of pearls. Also, in contrast, the wealthiest Nizam of Hyderabad, Osman Ali Khan Asaf Jah VII, was worth a relatively minuscule 600 crore rupees, or that's 87 million US dollars. That's all his conceivable assets combined in the 1940s, while his entire treasure of jewels would be worth between and 150 million US dollars and 500 million US dollars variously in today's terms.
So generally it's taken that these more recent great empires, the Mughal Empire particularly, in the 1940s, I mean, we used to hear stories how the Nizam of Hyderabad was making personal loans to the British Empire during World War II, financing the British war effort. So by comparison to this one temple, the Padmanabha Swamy Temple, it's a minuscule amount of wealth. The Nizam, the whole Mughal Empire, one of the Bandars, one of the vaults is, I don't know what the number is. I'm bad with numbers, but it's vastly more riches than these two empires combined. And throw in the crown jewels of England and a few other things, and the peacock throne in Tehran, the Shah's wealth. It doesn't equal even one of these vaults. All right, what else is there?
The Padmanabha Swamy treasure is worth millions of times that of the British crown jewels.
Ha! Read him and weep.
Even with
Read him and weep. You guys missed the greatest treasure.
Luckily.
Yeah.
Even with only the 5 smaller of the reported 8 vaults being opened, the larger 3 vaults and all the antechambers still remaining closed, the treasure found so far is considered to be by far the largest collection of items of gold and precious stones in the recorded history of the world. Vaults G and H remain unopened, and their contents have yet to be estimated other than to say their content surpasses one's imagination.
So I think that supports the philosophy that the Supreme Lord is all opulent. He is the richest among the rich. He is the rich. He is richer than Kuvera. He is the richest of all. All right, so we just thought that would be interesting. This was in the news, but things come and go in the news so fast. It's very easy to miss this, and I frequently meet devotees who I say, "Oh, well, how about the treasure in Padmanabha Temple?" And they go, "What treasure?" So maybe this will be interesting to share with friends, family, other devotees, the riches found in the vaults of the Padmanabha Swamy Temple.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons, I just want to point this out, it's actually very practical. This temple known as Somnath, centuries ago in North India and Gujarat, it was raided by the Muslim armies. Who was one of the main invaders at that time? Was that Timurlan?
Timurlan, maybe. Yeah, I think Timurlan did that. All the Portuguese also raided it once as well.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, they went up the coast and went there and raided it.
And the reason they raided it was to plunder the wealth. Well, that was an old history. An army could just come riding in on horses, and you had little to no warning, possibly, that they were coming and raid your village, raid your town, raise your town, raid your temple, steal it. Well, the Vikings, when they came into England, they raided the one famous monastery, and then they realized, wow, this place is a pushover, a bunch of monks and all this silver and gold, and then they just came, nonstop for a couple of centuries. Well, that never happened in Padmanabha, but the government isn't so eager to publicize what wealth is there, because armies still exist, invasions still happen. Think Iraq, for example. And when Iraq was invaded, there was plundering of national treasures, museums, so many things. The same was true in World War II. Hitler was plundering wealth and treasures of art and artifacts of all description, valuable religiously or valuable in terms of, take it to the bank, value. And so the government just isn't so eager to, bring this to everybody's attention. Hey, guys, down here, and you go through this temple, guarded by a few military people now, and the priest. there's more wealth in the bottom of this temple than is humanly imaginable. I mean, the reports were when they opened these doors and shined lights in there, people just stopped, and they were just stunned by what they saw. It makes the, what's that, Lord of the Rings, and they go.
Oh, the Hobbit.
Yeah, the hobbits going after
Smaug's gold, yeah.
It's something like that, but it's for real. Or Pirates of the Caribbean. I mean, that's nothing what, Jack Sparrow and Barbossa are fighting over some little dinky treasure. And that's all brass, actually. It's not even real gold.
Right.
Times thousands, It was stunning. It still is stunning. And it's for that reason that they don't want to, or that's one of the reasons they don't want to make it too known and actually show. There's just a few descriptions, and I don't know that any of those pictures we showed you, except the Garbhodakshai Vishnu, the gold Utsav Murti, that was real. Most of the other stuff there probably is not from the actual treasure, but just to give you an idea. So we shared those pictures.
We were discussing yesterday about Jagannath Temple and Tirupati, and we were saying that Jagannath Temple, they're both two of the richest temples in India, but Jagannath Temple was plundered by the Muslims after the time of Mahaprabhu, and a lot of the gold and treasures were stolen from there. And Tirupati only became known for its wealth only recently in the last 100 years or so.
Yeah. And the Ranganath Temple in what's it?
Srirangam.
Srirangam, we call it Srirangam.
Yeah, Tiruchirappalli.
If you've been to that temple, when you walk in, there's 7 concentric walls that surround that temple. It used to be that the inner wall that surrounded the Vimana, which is still gold today, you can see that. The dome above the deities is gold. But everything, the floors, the walls, everything was gold in those days. And just inside the last wall, or it's just outside the last wall, I can't remember. I remember now, there's like a 25-foot copper Garuda on one knee with his hands in reverence looking towards the deity. Well, at the time of the Mughal invasion, that 20-plus foot statue was solid gold. Yeah. And the Muslims took it away and melted it down, etc. And now it's been replaced with a copper one. So, I mean, I asked the question the other day, and I don't have a satisfactory answer. Like, where'd all this gold come from? Where did it come from? I mean, there were hundreds of kilos of pearls. I have read some accounts that on the on the southeast coast of India, the pearls could just be found lying on the beach at times. I think Srila Prabhupada even mentions that the ocean used to give up its pearls. There was so much wealth in the world of every description. Now we cry about the trees that are being lost, the deforestation, because in the memory of our grandparents, there were so many bigger trees, let's say, or our great-grandparents. But no one can remember a time when you could just walk along the beach and pick up a handful of pearls. What was that time? That's lost to memory. And things get lost to memory, and they're recorded somewhere, and then someone says, oh, that's just a myth. Like a friend of mine was joking one time and said, oh, yeah, in the future, children will say, that's not really true. There weren't really fish in the ocean. There weren't really fish in the rivers. Because by comparison, there are none. They're disappearing. Even in the ocean, the amount of fish and whales and other creatures that used to live in the ocean, it's diminishing. And at a time, it becomes a myth. It's just a myth. So when we read about these things in Mahabharata, Ramayana, we read about amazing wealth, just wealth that staggers the imagination. It is not an exaggeration. And this Padmanabha, the revealing of a part of the treasure at Padmanabha, certainly establishes that these are not exaggerations. There was such wealth on this earth in bygone times that it's unimaginable to the mind today. All right, there was, I think there was two things or one thing I wanted to do. Tomorrow is the appearance of Lord Narasingha, and you can see over my shoulder here, that shoulder back there.
Other shoulder.
Yeah, right, it's reversed. Is a book called Narasimha, The Lost Temples. Now I have a picture of that. I want to put that on the screen here. And this is called Narasimha, The Lost Temples. This is a very beautiful book. It's done by a devotee, one of the sons of Dharmatma Prabhu, whose name is Dhruva. I'm going to put his picture up here also. Where'd it go? Hang on. Yeah, here's a picture of Dhruva. He spent years traveling around India, compiling photos and little histories on various Narasimha temples in South India, and he's and other places in India. And he's bringing out this book, I think, in 3 volumes, but the first volume's out, and I'm telling you, it's just an amazing production. It's just got beautiful pictures of Narasimha. So we'll give a link down below, possibly if we have a link where you can order this book online. And definitely, it's not cheap. It's an expensive book, but it's definitely worth adding to your library. Mm-hmm. So give a little plug there for Dhruva's book. So the only thing I can say that isn't correct about this book is the temples are not lost. Millions of people go to these temples every year, but it's a nice temple. It's a nice title nonetheless.
Yeah.
All right, so that was it for today. The lost treasures of Swami Padmanabha, which were never lost. But what was lost was the memory of these treasures.
Exactly.
All right, so Giri, was there anything else? I think that
I think that's it.
I wanted to mention, see. Oh yes, one of the things I want to mention is that inside the Padmanabha Swamy Temple is the Samadhi of King Kulashekar. And the King Kulashekar is the Kulashekar of the prayers of King Kulashekar, which Prabhupada liked very much.
Mukundamala.
Yes, called Mukundamala. And so his Samadhi is there inside the compound, and built above his Samadhi, I believe there is a Krishna temple, a Venu Krishna. In South India, you won't find any temple actually of Radha Krishna. There is no conception of Radharani anywhere you go in the South. And anywhere you will see it, well, it's something modern or it's completely wrong. I was told once, in Trivandrum, there's a Radha Krishna temple. It's about 100 years old. I said, really, Radha Krishna? I'll go there. So I went there and I approached the altar and I looked, and there was a Venu Krishna playing his flute, standing alone. I looked, am I missing something? No, there's no Radharani here. Then I turned around and I looked back to the back, and standing at the back of the Darshan hall was a deity or statue of Radharani standing like Garuda with her hands folded, looking at Krishna. So, you like if you go to a Shiva temple, you'll see Nandi offering respects, looking at the Shiva Lingam, or the Vishnu, you'll see a Garuda offering on one knee with his hands folded. So there was Radharani back there like Garuda. So the conception of Radha and Krishna is very foreign in South India, where you have these sampradayas of antiquity, the Sri sampradayas, the Nambudri Brahmins, the Madhvas, the Lingites, all these different groups have been down there. The original Jains, that precede Buddhists, the Jain Buddhists, all of these, so it's a very old traditional place, and thus the conception of Radharani is very foreign to them, and very difficult actually to preach that Vrindavan conception in South India. But one thing I can say about South India, they don't have sahajiyas. They have smartas, they have jnanis galore. They had people who would rather die than miss an Ekadasi or something like that. But they don't have sahajiyas. Yeah, so that's one good quality I can say. Well, there are many good qualities, but that's one. All right, that kind of wraps it up. That's all we wanted to say, and I hope everyone, I don't want to say enjoyed, but I hope everyone found this video interesting, and also a little change of pace from our usual hammering away at the various misconceptions floating around the Vaishnava world. But rest assured, we'll be back to that real soon. All right, everybody. Hare Krishna. Thank you for watching.